Hello, and welcome to an interview in history. This week, we'll be exploring a legendary figure, something we'll be doing every so often. We'll be talking with Robin of Locksley, better known as Robin Hood. The legend of Robin Hood is one of the most enduring folk tales in English history. It centers on a heroic outlaw, Robin Hood, who's famous for robbing from the rich and giving to the poor. His story is set during the medieval period, often around the time of King Richard the Lionheart's reign, late 12th century, though various versions place it at different times. Welcome, Robin Hood. We're excited to hear your story. Let's start from the beginning. Could you tell us a bit about your early life and what led you to become the legendary figure we know today?
Well, I was born in Locksley, a small village in Nottinghamshire. My father was a yeoman, a skilled archer, and he taught me everything I know about the bow. Life was peaceful for a while, but then things took a turn when the local sheriff began squeezing the people with unjust taxes. That's when I realized the world was unfairly skewed in favor of the wealthy and powerful.
So, was there a particular event that made you take up arms?
Yes, there was. I saw too many of my friends and neighbors lose their land, their livelihood, all for the benefit of greedy lords and corrupt officials. One day, after a particularly cruel act of injustice, I fought back. It wasn't long before I became an outlaw, but in my mind, I was just defending the people. Once you're declared an outlaw, there's not much choice left but to live as one.
And that's when you started robbing from the rich and giving to the poor?
Aye. It wasn't about greed or wealth for me. It was about injustice. The wealthy had more than they could ever need, and they gained it through oppressing the poor. So, I took what was wrongfully taken from the people and returned it to them. I always believed that wealth should serve the common good, not line the pockets of the few.
Tell us more about your band of merry men. How'd you gather such a loyal group around you?
Ah, the merry men. I'm proud of that lot. It started with just a few close friends. Little John was the first to join me. He's a giant of a man, but with a heart just as big. Then came Will Scarlet, a fierce, fiery young lad, and Friar Tuck, a man of the cloth who, surprisingly, shares my views on wealth and power. We all shared a common goal to fight injustice, and that created a bond that no amount of wealth could break.
Your band of men seems like a family in its own right. How did you manage to stay hidden for so long in Sherwood Forest?
Sherwood is vast and dense, perfect for hiding. We know its path better than any sheriff or knight. We built our camps deep in the forest where no one could easily find us. But it wasn't just the terrain that kept us hidden. The people protected us too. They saw us as their defenders, so they helped keep our secrets. Without their support, we wouldn't have lasted long.
What about your reputation?
The people clearly loved you, but the authorities must have seen you as a dangerous threat.
Oh, they certainly did.
To the sheriff of Nottingham and the nobles, I was nothing but a criminal. But the people's opinion meant more to me. They saw through the lies. They knew what I was fighting for. The authorities called me an outlaw, but in truth, it was they who were the outlaws to justice. Every time they sent men after me, we would evade them or give them a good fight. The more they tried to catch me, the more the people rallied around us.
Speaking of the sheriff, what was your relationship like with him? You too were known to have many run-ins.
The sheriff of Nottingham was relentless. He was the symbol of everything wrong with the system. Greedy, corrupt, and always willing to enforce the king's harsh taxes. Our encounters were frequent, and though he tried to capture me more times than I can count, he never succeeded. It became a bit of a game, to be honest. He was obsessed with my downfall, but I always stayed one step ahead. Many stories speak of a love interest in your life.
Maid Marian.
Could you tell us more about her? Ah, Marian. She's as brave and strong as she is kind. We met when I was still a young man, long before I became an outlaw. She came from a noble family, but her heart was always with the people. Despite the risks, she supported me and my cause. Marian is no damsel in distress. She's fought by my side more than once, and her courage never wavers. We shared a bond built on trust, respect, and a shared belief in justice. Sounds like she played a significant role in your life and your fight. Absolutely. She has her own ways of influencing change, often from within the noble circles where I could never reach. Marian's intelligence and bravery have saved our lives more times than I can count. She's my equal in every way, and I couldn't have done this without her. As an outlaw, you've had to live outside the law for so long. Do you ever wish for a different life, one where you aren't constantly on the run? There are days when I think about that, of course. A quiet life, free of danger and conflict, would be a dream. But as long as injustice exists, I know where I need to be. The fight for the common folk is too important. Besides, I've found a different kind of freedom out here in Sherwood. I'm living by my own code, and that's something few people can say. It sounds like you've found your place in the world, even if it's not the life many would choose. So, what's next for Robin Hood and your band of merry men? We'll keep doing what we've always done, fighting for justice, standing up for those who can't defend themselves. As long as the poor are oppressed and the rich exploit them, we'll be here. Our fight isn't over yet. The sheriff and his men will keep coming, but so will we. Before we wrap up, Robin, there are many tales about how your story ends. Some say you vanished into the woods, while others claim a more tragic ending. What can you tell us about the final chapter of your journey? The end. Well, it's not quite as grand as the legends make it out to be. As much as I'd like to say I simply vanished into the woods, my body began to feel the weight of years spent in battle and constant evasion. I wasn't invincible after all. My wounds caught up with me, and I knew my time was drawing near. Was there a specific event that led to the end of your days as an outlaw? It was an arrow wound that never healed properly. I sought help from my cousin, the prioress of Kirklees Abbey, hoping she could heal me. Unfortunately, that was my mistake. Some say it was treachery, that she betrayed me to the authorities, or perhaps she was acting on her own ambition. Whatever the truth, she bled me, whether on purpose or not. I'll leave that for others to debate, but it weakened me to the point where I couldn't recover. That sounds like a difficult way to go. What were your final moments like? When I realized my strength was leaving me, I called for Little John, my most trusted friend. He stayed by my side until the end. There's a story that I asked for my bow and shot one final arrow through the window. Wherever it landed, I told him, that's where I wish to be buried. I wanted to rest in the forest, far from the reach of those who sought to capture or kill me. Did you find peace in those last moments? In some ways, yes. I knew I had done everything I could to fight for justice. My only regret was leaving the people without protection. But I trusted that the spirit of rebellion wouldn't die with me. The ideals I stood for, the fight against oppression, those would live on, even if I couldn't. So you believe your legacy carried on through others? Absolutely. The people I fought for were strong, and though I may have led the fight, I was never the only one. I wasn't just one man. I was a symbol of defiance, and symbols can't be killed. What about where you want to go after this? If you believe in life beyond this one. Do you have any thoughts about that? I've always believed that those who fight for a just cause, who stand up for others, find peace in the next world. Whether it's some grand afterlife or simply becoming part of the forest I love so much, I'd like to think I'm still connected to this earth, watching over the people who continue the fight. Do you think your story is still relevant today? More than ever. The struggle between the powerful and the powerless is as old as time. People will always need someone to remind them that justice is worth fighting for, even when the odds seem impossible. My story is just one of many, but if it inspires even one person to stand up for what's right, then it's done its job. Thank you, Robin, for sharing your incredible story with us today. It's been a pleasure to hear about your journey and the ideals you stand for. The pleasure is mine. I hope my story reminds people that one voice, one action can make a difference. Stand up for what's right, no matter the cost. Always remember, it's not about how many battles you win or lose, but how hard you fight for those who can't fight for themselves. That's the real legacy. While there's no definitive historical evidence that Robin Hood was a real person, there are theories that he may be based on several different individuals, or that his character is a composite of various legends and tales of outlaws and resistance to tyranny during the medieval times. Over the centuries, Robin Hood has been adapted into numerous books, films, plays, and television shows, making him a lasting symbol of popular resistance to injustice. And now, another forgotten history. Archaeologists found a 4,800-year-old skeleton of a mother holding her 6-month-old child. She is believed to be an ancestor of the Austronesian people who spread across the Pacific, Taichung, Taiwan, Damping King culture, 2800 BC. While excavating a prehistoric Taiwanese Aboriginal mass burial site discovered in Taichung, Taiwan, archaeologists discovered the remains of a young mother and her child. They were amongst the 48 sets of neatly laid out skeletal remains that were recovered way back in 2014. These archaeological findings turned out to be the earliest signs of human activity found in central Taiwan. But what caught the attention of the archaeologists was the remains of the mother and child. When it was unearthed, all of the archaeologists and staff members were shocked. Dr. Chu Wei Li, curator and director
of the Anthropology Department at Taiwan's National Museum of Natural Science, told Reuters, "Why? Because the mother was looking down at the baby in her hands." The mother was a young female, estimated to be between 20 and 25 years of age, and 5 foot 2 inches tall. She cradled a baby in her left arm and was gazing down at it. Initially, they thought the child had died from a miscarriage or difficult labor, but they subsequently determined from its height, a foot and a half, and bones, that the infant was 6 months old, and both mother and child probably died together. How they died and what happened then remains a mystery. The burial site was discovered when test digging of the area was conducted by a property developer before construction began. The excavation began in May 2014 and took a year to complete. Carbon-14 dating was used to determine the age of the finding, which included 4,000 ceramic fragments and 200 shark teeth. The area was probably near the shoreline back then. The remains were found to be 4,800 to 5,000 years old, dating back to the early to mid-Neolithic age and part of the Dampincane culture. These findings are 1,000 years older than previously discovered findings. Men were in charge of fishing and hunting, while women used stone tools to harvest crops. Join us next week when we talk with Henry VIII, who was the King of England from the 22nd of April, 1509, until his death in 1547. Henry is known for his 6 marriages and his efforts to have his first marriage annulled. Henry brought radical changes to the Constitution of England, expanding the royal power and ushering in the theory of the divine right of kings in opposition to papal supremacy. Until then, take care.